All right, y'all. I have an absolutely crazy story for y'all today. All right, you see the title and the thumbnail. What the heck is going on? Well, let me explain. All right, there's a gentleman named Clif High, this guy right here, who most of you have probably never heard of. And the reason I know that is because that's actually not Clif High. That is Jonathan Banks. He was in an actor. He was in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Right? Yeah, this is Clif High. Right? And basically, this guy has made a prediction that on December 3rd, right, which is tomorrow, okay, there will be a huge alien invasion, right? UFOs fighting UFOs, fighter jets fighting UFO. There's just going to be a war in the skies of aliens and UFOs, right? And what set this off? Well, a trigger, right? What he calls a temporal marker. And that temporal marker is this interview with Joe Rogan and Donald Trump, right? Because when this interview took place, apparently 39 days from the date of this Joe Rogan interview, which would be December 3rd, this would happen. And how do we know about this? How does this guy know about it? Well, there's a lot of stories floating around the internet about this, but I've got a bunch of clips to kind of help us, better understand what exactly is going on from this particular gentleman, Clif High. And many people are saying a lot of his predictions from the past have come true. Well, we're going to look into that too, right? So first, let me play just a little TikTok video of what's going around the internet, of what people are talking about, because there's some things that are being said that just aren't true.
A really weird story. So this guy, his name is Clif High. It was 1997. He developed this software program called WebBot. And what it would do, it would scan the entire internet, collect data. It would make predictions for the stock market. But then he delved into it a little more. It's just like, let's see what else it can predict. In 2009, it came up with a prediction of the future, that there was going to be a battle in the air with the military and UFOs, and that even UFOs would be fighting UFOs.
Whoa.
But there had to be a trigger to
Set it in motion.
Yeah, set it in motion. It said that when this trigger happens, then 39 days later, this prediction will come true. Here's the crazy part. 2009. The trigger was Donald Trump would be interviewed by Joe Rogan.
Bro, no.
Nuh-uh.
No way, dude. That's crazy.
So as you can see from this TikTok video, right, they kind of explain the situation a little bit. But look, the truth is his earlier predictions just can't be proven. And what they said about Donald Trump and Joe Rogan, yeah, that was not predicted back in 2009. There is no video of that. There's nothing like that, right, essentially. But why are we saying this, right? Why are people saying this thing? Well, here's a quick clip recently of Clif just about 2 months ago talking about this.
The interview will take place, and therefore we'll have it as a temporal marker itself. And so that sets going a sort of a timer. Bear in mind what I was telling you about how we get these times, right? It's a software adding up all of this shit based on all these words, and we're constantly wrong to some great degree. And it varies based on the size of the set, the amount of processing it takes, and yada, yada, yada. So it's not like any kind of guaranteed date or anything, right? It is just, I am alluding to the possibility that there's a short period of time between the, barely over a month, between the temporal marker and the visible contention that will appear in the skies that from the descriptors we had back in 2009 will go to the idea of UFO versus UFO and UFO versus jets. Okay, so like sort of very complex kind of Independence Day kind of shit, right? Nobody will know who the hell is doing what with whom. Now, okay, so you think that's unlikely and so on, as do I. All this shit's always unlikely until it happens. Possible, not probable, right?
So clearly he's saying that this is, even himself, right? This is not probable. It's possible, right? But where's all the fervor coming from online? And why are people so just locked in that this is going to happen? And again, including his other predictions, which we'll get to in just a moment in the video. But, this idea that, right, we're going to have this big alien invasion tomorrow. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, none of this matters, and we'll find out tomorrow, right? But regardless, what's interesting is that the way he comes to this data, right? The way he comes to these predictions, it's kind of just more of a guess, right? Just a guess. But I will say there are some interesting things that about 4 years ago that he spoke about on a podcast. And I'll admit, it's a little interesting. Take a listen.
All right. So approximately late 2009, I started getting stuff in my data about an upcoming event that was going to be pivotal for there was going to be a pivotal temporal marker for the development of events here in the USA, but also globally in a big giant way, okay, like a spectacular way. And so started picking it up. And then 2010 kept building, 2011 and 12. Around 2011 and 12, the data set started filling in to the point where I had enough data to know that I was dealing with an unusual form of a TV show. Because at that point, the data sets weren't picking up the word podcast because it was not generally known. Okay. And so then around 2012 or so, it became apparent, I was talking that the data sets were referring to an individual who would be emblematic for a shift in what was going to be like a temporal flow. Let me put it that way, right? Mm-hmm. Not that he's in any way changing the nature of the country, not that he's in any way adding energy to make things go one way or another. That is not the role that was being described. What was being described in the data was simply a person's image that will be able to be seen for perhaps hundreds of years as being the person at the spot in one of those Iwo Jima kind of moments, or the sailor kissing the nurse at the end of World War II.
Oh yeah, iconic.
Precisely. The iconic thing for this particular ship, which happens to coincide with this fourth turning, which is going to be major for fourth turning in the United States, which is going to be major for the planet. So around 2012, I had a sufficiency of individual data points building up in this data set, and it continued all the way through until I was forced to shut down my operation, okay? And that data set continued to build, and eventually I thought I knew who it was because I came across the Joe Rogan podcast, and I think that was perhaps maybe a year after he had started doing it, okay? But it didn't dawn on me. I was looking at this iconic figure for perhaps another 4 or 5 years. I don't know how long it was in that process, because I would watch his show intermittently, and he would grow. It kept growing. Then a confluence of events all around the sun disease that broke out in December forced me to go back and relook at all of my old notes. Bringing all of this to the fore, I contacted headquarters and said, I think I know what's going on, and if I'm correct about this, we need to do a session on this guy, because if I'm correct, and this is the point in time in which sci-fi world is about to break open, we will have the most unique event to this date in both science as well as politics, because we will have a president of the United States talk space aliens with somebody on this podcast that will have a potential of reaching gigantic amounts of the planet, like 2/3 of the planet or something like that. And this is that temporal marker that is just ever so slightly ahead of the actual secrets revealed of reverse engineering and all of this kind of stuff that is coincident with the breakout of the fiat currency crises and the breakout of cryptos as a replacement vehicle. So we're right at that edge.
So again, this is from over 4 years ago, and as you can see, really a lot of it is just general, right? Like there'd be this iconic thing and this and that, but I didn't really know any of this back in 2009, and there is no video of any of this, right? I think as time went by, he sort of retroactively went back and made this prediction fit better, right? Because there is no video from 2009 of him stating this stuff, right? And so it just becomes very, you know, I don't know if dubious is the right word, but interesting, I guess I'll say. I don't really know. But regardless, the guy that's with him in this interview, right, he's a remote viewer, and he, you know, just during their conversation, I found this bit kind of interesting.
Okay, in the Joe Rogan work that I did for you, Blind, I said I see hundreds of millions of people all linked, hive control, information and entertainment transmitted to the masses.
Yep.
And look, if you think about it, you know, let's be real, right? Like, a hive mind goes out to millions of people. I mean, like, that's pretty obvious of what a big podcast would do. So I don't see that as any sort of big deal, right? And I think that's what happens, right? These two guys sort of feed off each other in this sense of, look what I drew, you know, this is it, this is that, right? And they made other predictions that just aren't coming true, and they just keep kind of moving, you know, moving the end zone, right, down the field more and more and more, right? Expanding this, right? So what's going to happen on December 3rd when this doesn't happen, right? Are they just going to continue to move it? Because you know, according to them, they thought this would happen sooner, right? They thought this was going to happen when Joe Rogan first announced that he would debate, you know, he would do a debate hosted by Joe Rogan, right, during the 2020 election, right? And does that make sense, right? So, like, this is just kind of all over the place.
When I put that one out, I remember doing the debrief, and I thought, man, I'm going out on a limb here. I'm predicting Trump is going to do the Joe Rogan show. But then I remember saying, it makes sense. I mean, Trump is the kind of guy that would just do that. What did you think when you saw that? Not today when the headlines hit, but what did you think when you saw that graphic come in?
I thought that was absolute confirmation, if it materialized, of the last, or the third to the last primary temporal marker before we can say sci-fi world is here. So, you know, as the way the data sets go, there are these temporal markers within each data set. And in order for the data set to be fulfilled, all of the major temporal markers and some of the secondary and tertiary temporal markers must be fulfilled in order for me to feel that data set has manifest. And we've been ticking along on this thing towards sci-fi world, which leads to some cool stuff, anti-gravity, all different kinds of cool devices and things. And that's been going on for some period of time. And yet, I was never sure that we were going to reach this particular point. And it was like, holy crud, to reach a defining example. And for me, I'm living in the future. Okay, so I live, because I've got these views of the future, my thoughts are in it. And so I'm living in the present, but I'm also aware of what's going on maybe 2 years out.
So look, I guess at the end of the day, I don't know what is going on, to be honest with you. But look, we'll find out tomorrow. But look, like I said, let's get to some of Clif High's predictions that he made previously, right? And did they come true? Because that's what's being alleged, right? He predicted 9/11, Indonesia, tsunami, the financial collapse, right, in 2009 and 2010, somewhere around there. The truth is, I couldn't find any evidence of that. Zero. But people are saying it. I find people saying the stuff, but I don't find anything to back it up whatsoever. And predictions, again, can be retroactively fitted to sort of fit, right? If you make them general enough, like something big will happen that will affect the world. What? Like everything's just so general. And I think that's kind of, the point here. I mean, at the most you could say, oh, well, they predicted that, Trump would be interviewed by Rogan. But I think anyone at some point would have guessed that, right? Somewhere along the line that was going to happen. I don't know. anyway, that's the deal, right? That's what they're saying. We'll find out tomorrow soon enough. And what's he going to say after this doesn't happen, right? Who knows, right? It'll get moved. Who knows? Or it was hidden. You didn't see it, right? The drones over the UK. That's what it is. I mean, who knows? So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I look forward to reading them about this for sure. We'll see you guys tomorrow, Vetters. Don't forget, we have a Spanish language and a German language channel if you enjoy those. Check them out below. Links in the description. Please go subscribe to help out. And a clips channel of just different clips taken from our interviews and things like that, kind of broken down. So if you want to subscribe to our other channels, the links are down below. If you want to become a YouTube member, please join. We've got hundreds of members. Would love to have you. Again, link down below. And of course, our Patreon, if you want to join that too, it's about $5 a month. And I put up new videos every week, just like these, on Patreon. You get a couple of those extra, vetted videos every week. So please join the Patreon and support us there. Thank you all so much. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, every day's a gift, Fetters. Peace.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.